if I can get this to work or not. Anyways, there's a little map up there that shows the catchment, that shows how far people travel to Kidlington, Exeter Hall, Thursday, Friday, Saturday for Cherwell Larder, where they can shop surplus first. We brought a mini larder to you here today. You've also got Bicester Fridge just down the street where you can shop surplus food first here. And you've got Bicester Green that repurposes surplus and makes it available here in Bicester. So most important thing you can do, shop surplus first. That gives information back to the industry and the production lines that cause climate change. The next thing you can do is think about the carbon cost of your diet. We've got Climatarian Kitchen here today serving vegan food. You should be eating less but better meat. Climatarian Kitchen has served 6,000 meals in the last 7 months and shared 500 of our recipes to help people live a more sustainable life. We also share a lot of skills. If you have any skills related to food, come join us. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the carbon cost of your diet. Do any of you feel like you could learn more about the carbon cost of your diet? Well, here, I got a question. Which dish do you think has a lower carbon footprint? A big plate of fish and chips or a little tiny burger? Which one has a lower one? Just shout it out. Fish and chips burger. All right, we had a pretty good split there. Say that again? Well, right, so if you guess fish and chips, you're right. A giant plate of fish and chips has a car miles equivalent of around 3 car miles for that plate of fish and chips. We do a lot of outreach on where do our food emissions come from. They come mostly from the processing and the production lines, growing the food. A little bit from the packaging, and there are lots of options, including lobbying your lovely authorities around packaging. And then the transport is actually just a very small portion of the carbon footprint of items, except when they are flown by plane. So some berries and other things that have to be flown by plane. And then there's, of course, the special case of livestock, which have a higher carbon footprint sometimes because they are actually eating the food that we could otherwise eat, so you kind of double it, and also they take longer to grow and they take more machinery to butcher. And cows and sheep are particularly bad because they produce methane, which is a greenhouse gas. So pig is better if you're going to eat meat because pig does not produce methane. Right, so we do have a lot of tools available if you're interested in learning how to calculate the carbon cost of your diet. We can show you on a plate how to do it. You could take it to the grocery store and make more sustainable choices. And here's how it works with a cheeseburger. You got a burger patty. That burger patty, 100 grams of beef, is the same as driving your car 8 miles. 8 miles. Right? And then the rest of your burger adds up to almost 2 miles. So your burger, the carbon cost of your burger is actually 10 miles to the planet. So if you wouldn't drive 10 miles for that burger, then maybe eat beans. Right, so we're going to move right on to food security from the ground up, and that's Harvest at Home. We have some pamphlets back there for you. This is our growing group. We've got gardens here in Garth Park, where we've been working with Bicester Green as well as Wild Bicester and Bicester Green Gym to basically revitalize the beautiful greenhouses that were behind Garth Park. We've also got a beautiful garden over at the Nightingale Pub, and we have a garden on Grebe Road, and we will be opening a few more community gardens. These green space gardens balance biodiversity with growing food for humans, and they're also places where people who access food larders and food banks can learn to grow their own food. And we've had about 700 people participate in those gardens in the last year. So I'm just going to finish with Waste Innovation Station, which will be coming to Bicester soon if anyone is interested in taking part in this, where what we're going to do is actually just provide support to your already existing amazing resources like Bicester Green, like Bicester Fridge, and the other places that already make a difference here in Bicester. We provide some support in terms of things like evaluation, learning what our real impact is, trying to get people together to understand their individual agency and how they can become part of the solution and what those solutions are, and making real practical steps towards that. Coming up, we have No Waste, No Well. This is a good example of how things work. In 1 week, we saved 70,000 car miles emissions equivalent of food surplus last year. Looking forward to how you can get ahead. We've got a garden work day next Wednesday at the Nightingale, so please do drop by. That's at 1 p.m. We've got a garden work day at Garth Park on next Friday at 10 a.m. And we've got a climate museum opening in Kidlington on the 6th of November. If you want to get in on the ground up there, you can sponsor a brick on the wall. And we also have No Waste, No Well, which is a massive repurposed item only Christmas fair in Kidlington on 2nd of December or throughout December at the West Gate. And we have Carbon Cost of Food Week, which is where you all can learn about carbon costing, although I will let you learn before then because I'll teach you, don't worry. But anyone who has a cafe or a restaurant who might want to carbon cost their own menus to be a part of this campaign at the end of January, we have restaurants all over the nation, even in Wales, who carbon cost their menus at the same time to increase transparency around the environmental consequences of our decisions when it comes to food. So I'm going to hand it off now to Linda, who's going to talk to you a bit about her book coming up, and thank you.
Thank you. It's great to hear of all that fantastic work and awareness raising going on. Now I'm following Chris Goodall's advice here, always make sure your book gets seen. So here it is, it's on the table at the back there if you'd like a better look. I've been vegetarian for all of my adult life, and then for the last 6 years vegan, because I realized it was a bit illogical to be vegetarian but not vegan. Like many people, I began because of animal cruelty. That was my primary reason for becoming vegetarian and then vegan. But more and more I'm aware of the powerful environmental reasons for not relying on meat in our diets. Simply, the world can't sustain billions of meat eaters. Could we have the next slide, please? Thanks. Tom and other speakers have referred earlier to these different ways of looking at the world. On the right, ego with man at the top and then woman a little bit below, and then the whole animal kingdom arranged below in a pyramid. And that attitude is the one we have had for too long, as if the whole world is for us to use, exploit, mine, kill, whatever we want to do with it, as if it's there purely at our service. Whereas eco on the left is the way we need to think. We are part of ecosystems, we can't exist without them, and we need to be much more aware of that and of lessening our impact. The next slide, please. Thank you. This one shows the numbers of animals consumed in a lifetime by the average average meat eater in a wealthy country like ours. So 3 whole cows, 5,000 and something fish, and so on, 11 pigs. Quite alarming to think of that. And as I ate meat until my 20s, I've eaten a fair few myself, which I don't like to think about. Next one, please. And this just shows some of the things that Emily touched on just now about the huge impact of animals and animal agriculture. Animal agriculture accounts for 8 to 18% of carbon emissions, and that's by many viewed as a slightly low estimate. And as you see there, beef especially is very, very costly in terms of feed, water, land use, and so on. So there are multiple factors why the world can't sustain mass meat eating in the wealthy countries. In this country, 85% of available land is used to graze animals or to grow cereals to feed animals, rather than growing crops directly to feed humans. We import vast quantities of cereals and grain. The Ukraine war has shown us that. And we also import vast amounts of soya. So there's a link to rainforest destruction. 90%, or by some estimates more, of soya from cleared rainforest is used to feed animals, not directly to feed humans, so tremendously wasteful and linking to the destruction of that precious resource. An Oxford University study in 2018 reported that the single biggest impact any individual can make is to be vegan. So even if you're not completely vegan, reducing animal products in your diet can reduce your impact, as Tom has shown with his app that I hope lots of you will be investigating. There was a new Oxford University study issued just a couple of months ago, which looked at the impacts of various kinds of diets. And in terms of not only carbon emissions, but also water and land use, a vegan diet came out as having by far the lowest impact, and even reducing meat, again, can reduce your own carbon footprint. There's also a link to biodiversity loss. A lot of you, I'm sure, have seen the State of Nature reports that came out a couple of months ago. This country is one of the most nature depleted in the world. We are suffering enormous loss of insects, birds, and wild plants in decline. 1 in 6 species in the UK is threatened with extinction, which is an awful figure, and a lot of creatures that used to be common, hedgehogs, turtle doves, water voles, are now endangered. And the State of Nature report makes it clear that that's due to climate change, but also due to the way we farm. Overuse of pesticides, herbicides, and losing habitat to farming land. Again, to grow crops to feed animals rather than directly to feed people. It's often said that we could feed the world of nearly 9 billion people. We could feed the world on the food we produce now, but not if the wealthy countries continue to consume meat at the way that we do. There are health implications as well to reducing meat in your diet. There's an organization called Plant-Based Health Professionals, which includes a lot of NHS doctors, consultant gastroenterologists, and the like, who make it clear that a plant-based diet can meet every nutritional need at every stage of life, including infancy, pregnancy, old age, if you eat a balanced plant-based diet. So even if you don't go all the way, you're going to improve your health by eating less meat. There are frequent links to red meat consumption and heart disease, cancer, and diabetes, especially class 2 diabetes. There was a new study reported just this week from Harvard linking red meat consumption to class 2 diabetes. A plant-based diet can save you money as well. It's often assumed that vegan food costs more, but I think that would only be the case if you lived entirely on packaged meals from supermarkets. It really doesn't need to, especially if you cook from ingredients, if you eat whole foods. As I know, I live with a meat eater, and I think my food costs about 1/3 as much as his. Now, I think we should turn the question around. I've often been asked over the years, why are you vegetarian? Why don't you eat meat? And I have all the answers. But what if we turn that around? What if we ask people, why do you eat meat? I think that needs to be the question, because when you think of what you can achieve by not eating meat, you're avoiding paying for cruelty. I haven't talked about the animal issues here because we're talking about sustainability, but of course, if you choose to eat meat, you are paying for cruelty. So, by not eating meat, you avoid paying for cruelty, reduce your carbon footprint, reduce your impact on biodiversity, improve your health, and save money. So that's win, 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 isn't it? And I heard a speaker the other day saying that you have 3 votes every day. Most of us are fortunate enough to eat 3 meals a day. So that's 3 votes you have. You vote for the kind of food you want, the kind of farming you want, the kind of impact you want to make on the world. I think a lot of people underestimate this. With a lot of people, if you ask what they think they can do to help the environment, they'll say they recycle, they avoid plastic, and so on. But food isn't the first thing that comes to into people's minds, but it's so important. It's one simple change that everybody can make for the better. So use your 3 votes each day to vote for the kind of food, the kind of farming you want. Thank you.
That was really great. Thank you, Linda. And just a reminder, her book is back there, and all of the things she's talking about are 100% verified by science. So do think about that. That is your biggest vote, and that does give information to the powers that be, the suppliers of our food chains, right? If you vote with your meals, that's the best thing you can do with your individual agency. So well done, Linda. Very, very nice. Shall we move on to hear about growing? Maggie, are you ready?
Yep, I'm ready.
All right, great. So here's
The slides are ready, are they? Is my microphone on? Whoa, now it is. Now I can tell. I don't want it too close to my mouth because I sat at the back earlier, and if you have it up here, it's so loud you can't hear. So I'm going to put it a little bit further away and ask you to be tactical with the volume knob. Oh, good. Pictures of my garden are going to flash by up there. Some of you will see yourselves on the pictures, either working in my garden or sitting around a huge table eating. But there you are. It's to entertain you if I'm boring. Okay. It was nearly 3 years ago that I added my neighbouring garden to my existing garden at the back of the terrace houses that I live in the middle of Bicester. And with lots of help from friends and neighbours, I turned it into something amazing. Tom was a big part of turning it into amazing too. But I'll start at the beginning. I learned about growing vegetables alongside my dad when I was a child, just after the war. If we didn't grow things, we were very limited to what our food ration books would supply. And that continued for my first 5 years. We dug and planted and harvested. Long story missed out. When I moved to Bicester, which is a long time later, I had an allotment, which was my vegetable source for 90% of the year. If you plan it right, you can get food all year. But then I got cancer and had to give up the allotment. But I still had my smaller garden with a few raised beds, and even then I managed some vegetables. But in second lockdown, when I was beginning to feel better, I got an extended garden, and the real work started. I wanted more veg, more flowers, a wild garden, and my daughter wanted an orchard. That's a lot for the size of the patch, but you'll see the pictures of how we got most of it. Vegetable beds are seasonal, and traditional English veg that I grew up with can do incredibly well. Every year, something doesn't do well. This year, it was carrots. Parsnips are brilliant, but some things have a glut. And I'm still picking runner beans this year, if anyone does gardening. This is quite late on, and I'm still sharing them with my neighbours because I cannot possibly eat everything I grow. I just like doing it. My flowers are, as you'll see on the pictures, quite madly colourful, disorganised and chaotic, but more fun. You'll always find something there. They're mostly perennial, so that I don't have to do ages planting little things every spring. And increasingly, they're drought-resistant varieties, because if it gets too hot, I don't go and water them. Then they die, unless they're drought-resistant. So the hardy ones get by. I take cuttings from lots of my plants. I collect seeds and give away all the spares. I have suggested that next year when we do this, I'll bring a table of home-gathered seeds in packets. I buy my plug plants on eBay because that's the cheapest way to do it, because I don't have much money from my pension. But anyway, that's another story. I'm really into trees. And when you look at the size of my garden, which is about 150 feet, I think I calculated when I bought a hose pipe, in my 150 feet of garden, by about 60 feet, no, not that, 50 feet, I have 11 trees that I've planted. I started with a quince tree and a plum tree, and this year they both produced more fruit than you could ever imagine. I have 6 gooseberry bushes, which are among the flowers, if you can find them, and I have 4 blackcurrant bushes. I grow hot chilies and tomatoes in the greenhouse, and this year they did so well I had to keep shifting the odd one out to let the others breathe. So more chilies than anything. I had decided that I wanted a wild garden, and you'll see it is about 60% of my new garden, the extended part. It's been a steep learning curve. Tom, who was helping, doing the hard labour, I did the dreaming at the side. On crutches you can't really dig or use a strimmer, by the way. My original seed mix that I'd bought, not hearing from anyone what you do, had got too much grass seed in it, so by the second year we were growing grass, which is not my favourite thing, growing grass, and the flowers were disappearing. Now I'm removing turf strip by strip and planting with a seed mix that has no grass in it. And hopefully next year we'll be making more progress. And the wildflower orchard, which is what it's become, now had space for 2 apple trees. And I buy a special kind of tree that fits small gardens, so nobody can say they can't have a tree. I've got 2 dogwood trees, a flamingo willow, and more. And what is totally exciting is if you come at the right time, you'll see the hedgehogs wandering through. And this year I had not 3 kinds of butterflies, but 9 kinds of butterflies in my garden, plus dragonflies and a grasshopper. So I was very happy about that. So these days, with some ongoing health limitations, 5 years of limitations anyway, I spend all my fine weather pottering around, which is one reason why I didn't bother to resort the garden slides. It was much more important to go out and play with the runner beans. My friends and neighbours help. They share their wisdom and eat the excess crops. The neighbours' 2 sons, their favourite food in their lunchbox these days is runner beans off my patch. They want them in their lunchbox. They don't want them cooked. They'll take them any way they can get them. But every day their lunchbox has runner beans. They haven't realised they're seasonal yet. And they'll come home from their half-term holiday and find, where have the beans gone? Wait till the spring, boys. And then we have the big table, which you saw. We have a pizza supper, some more church people than that, a roast green garlic feast at harvest time, corn on the cob barbecues. We have an autumn squash feast, and still to come this year is mulled drinks and mince pies. Blackberry, blackcurrant, gooseberry and parsnip liqueurs variously are homegrown and home-picked, and they will be the mulled drinks. So I didn't say mulled wine on purpose. And what about my lawn? Did you see a lawn on my pictures? You didn't. There isn't one. There's a bit of cut grass that's not too tall because I have to take it out to put flowers in. But I don't believe in lawns. There's plenty of places where grass can grow without someone labouring over it. And then just to let you know, on the news about a week ago, there was an item about someone getting up in the morning and finding their lawn had been stolen. And I thought, how do you steal a lawn? You need diggers and turf shifters. They'd got a plastic grass lawn, and someone had come in the night and rolled it up. I thought it was so much fun that I ran around the room laughing because I hate plastic grass. I hope none of you have got plastic grass because it does several things. 1, it kills the insects underneath. 1, the insects on the top can't get to the soil, and it clogs up, and the weeds grow on the top, and it just gets subsumed into the soil. Total pollution. So if you grow grass, I'm all right with that. But if you have a plastic lawn, let me know where it is, and I'll come and steal it for you in the night. Thank you.
Yeah, a question. I'm wondering, What is your opinion on lab-grown meat? And do you think that that's a viable alternative, or whether that has any sort of, whether that is good as a innovation?
Personally, if you want meat, eat meat. Lab-grown meat is more expensive and tedious. There are so many good things you can eat that aren't meat. I didn't deliberately give up meat. I eat it occasionally now, but I had so many good things that I wanted to eat that are full of protein, just forget it. So a matter of taste.
I would say I'm not keen to eat it myself, but if it massively reduces animal suffering, as it would, and it reduces carbon emissions, then it's a good thing. It's only in the initial stages at the moment, but it's going to be available at scale. What surprises me is that people are so squeamish about it when people don't mind at all eating slaughterhouse products. So I think there's a bit of illogicality there. But from my point of view, it could massively reduce animal suffering. So I'm for it. I won't choose to eat it myself because I will continue to eat plants.
Yeah, I would say from an environmental point of view, it's not worth it because a giant lab being built has a massive carbon footprint, and so does all the refrigeration that's required for meat, including lab-grown meat. So it's actually better just to make your own burger out of even half mushrooms, half beef, as we do in Climatarian Kitchen, beans, anything that's grown that can be dried and ambient is the best option for sort of sustainable lifestyle. So I would say from just a pure carbon cost point of view, yes, it's better than meat, but it's definitely not better than a bean burger that you make yourself. So I think it's kind of, my view is that people need to get out of the idea that we have to have everything available that we want at our fingertips all of the time, and just understand that society needs to switch to a more balanced sort of setup where people have time to prepare their meals out of food that can be grown locally and sustainably, and that means nothing that requires giant refrigerated warehouses at all. Like I would say all prepackaged foods should be sort of shifted out of our ecosystem as quickly as possible because they're all dangerous for the environment, whether they contain meat or not.
Hi. I wonder if any of you have any suggestions as to how we get over the problem that so many people don't know how to cook. So even if they wanted to be vegetarian, they wouldn't know where to start with cooking both healthy, nutritious and tasty vegetarian meals.
Have you got that in your book?
I have a bit. I mean, it's not a cookery book, but I do mention that the importance of learning to cook. And it's not difficult to make soup, for instance. Anybody could make soup. But I know there are areas in cities where people don't have easy access to fresh vegetables. Around here we're lucky because we've got markets and shops and farm shops and so on. But not everyone has access to fresh ingredients, sadly. But yeah, you're right. It's important to develop those skills and for people to be more self-reliant.
I think our district counselor, is he still here? So I know that part of the plan is to increase cookery courses. It's part of a strategic food plan for a more sustainable food supply system in Oxfordshire. So for example, Climatarian Kitchen offers courses. We have over 500 recipes available online that people can follow, and they're very flexible recipes. So it's kind of like, if you have hard veg, here's when you chop it up and throw it in. So you can make it with whatever, and it will make something. It might not be the best thing you've ever eaten, but it will make something that's edible and is balanced and nutritious for you. And I think, I know that there's a lot of central government work going along the same ways, along the same lines, but Oxfordshire does lead the way in a lot of that. And so there are plans to make sure that there are cookery courses available Good Food Oxfordshire in particular, if anyone is interested in sharing their cooking skills, has a series of courses all over the county. So if you do know how to make nutritious food and you would like to share those skills so that other people can learn them from you, Good Food Oxfordshire is a good place to do that, because they do have courses all over, and we make sure that they have surplus fresh vegetables to work with, and that people know where their nearest fresh vegetable supply is. For example, in Bicester, it's just down the road at the day center at Bicester Fridge, where they will have fresh produce available regularly from surplus that will otherwise go to landfill. And that's really important to remember, is that surplus is always that fresh produce. So you can always access it there. If you know someone who's struggling to buy it in a shop, send them to their nearest fridge or larder, because the fresh stuff will definitely be there. Did you have anything you wanted to say?
Well, I get fresh vegetables all the time from my garden, but during lockdown, when life was very difficult and I was ill, I got fresh vegetables from Riverford, and they sent me things that I've never seen before, even though I'm into vegetables, and they had great recipes with it. And I think all of us can learn a recipe a month, if you like, and not try to go vegetarian overnight, because a lot of people actually love eating meat. But if you change to one really good non-meat meal per week, say your Tuesday nights or something were the day when you tried something new, you would find the things that you liked and you'd repeat them. So when my daughter comes from London, she'll always ask for the dal that has coconut milk in it, which of the various dals I've tried is a brilliant way to do it, and everything in that is just cooked in my own kitchen. But I think also when you get used to seasonal vegetables, which you will if you grow anything yourself in the garden, you do much better on all of this, because you want to eat what you've grown. Children in schools want to cook and eat the vegetables they've grown in the school garden or in their garden at home, and they'll eat things which they would otherwise turn their nose up at because they hadn't seen it before. So I think you have to start by experimenting and gradually push the boat out.
And it always tastes better when you grow it yourself. Always. Yeah, I mean, carrots, you will not get a sweeter carrot than when you grow yourself. Tomatoes, cucumbers, and you won't ever want to get them from a shop again. So, you know, I mean, I agree entirely.
I one day bought some carrots and put them in a stew, and when I came to eat them, I was eating the stew and I thought, what was that I've just eaten? It had texture, but no taste at all. It was just nothing. So I cooked some on their own and they were still nothing. So when I got one from the garden, I said, what is this all about? And I put the garden one in, and it was full of flavour because it's slow grown, grown in soil, not just water, and it takes all summer to grow. It's full of riches, where if you do high-speed growth, which a lot of bought vegetables are, they're mostly full of water, and they have very little of their original flavour. So if you can make a little square, I have lots of neighbours who started growing because they liked what I was doing. But one neighbour who retired and was very bored during lockdown created 2 1-metre square raised beds in the middle of her lawn. Odd, but anyway. And now she grows strawberries, gooseberries, corn, various other things around the edges, different things each year. It all tastes different.
Just more of a comment, really, and a bit of a shameless plug. As Linda kindly put up the Vegetarian Society logos, trademark and things, I'm coming up to the end of my 9-year volunteer trustee term now there. But just to point out, really, the Vegetarian Society is for the target audience is for non-vegetarians. So if anybody, just in response to a couple of the previous points, if anybody is looking for support, simple recipes, ideas to start, if you're looking to kind of, you know, take a few vegetarian meals, or you're having friends around who are vegetarian and you just don't know where to start, then absolutely, that is for you. That's the target audience. So yeah, just there's a whole wealth of information on the vegetarian website. I would just say go there, and really simple tips and places to make a start.
Thank you, Dale. We also need to think about the menus that are available to us when we eat out. And if you go out and you choose the vegetarian or the vegan dish, then that's an encouragement to the hotel or restaurant or whatever it is to continue providing it. If there isn't one, you could ask for it. What we need, though, is for plant-based to become the norm, so that instead of having 9 meat dishes and 1 vegetarian or vegan, we have 9 plant-based and 1 meat or fish. We need to turn that around, and we need to do it quickly. As people have said, we don't have time. We won't we won't meet carbon targets without reducing our reliance on meat and dairy. And we can all sort of help to shift that cultural norm by asking for and eating vegetarian and vegan food.
Just got a quick question, and I've had a wish for a long time for Bicester to have a vegetarian restaurant. That would be my dream. And I just wondered, firstly, is the Cherwell Collective likely to start something like you do at Kidlington here? Or is there an entrepreneur who feels they want to start that kind of thing? And just to say, there was a question about lab-grown meat. I worked as a scientist for 20 years at least, but we grew human cells in culture, but to actually grow them, we used fetal calf serum which the cells needed for growth. Now, I don't know whether things have moved on and people have got a substitute for fetal calf serum. So if not, then it's actually just as cruel, because, and you're also using chemicals like antibiotics and all sorts of things, so not such a good idea.
So I'll touch I do want to make one more comment about the lab-grown stuff, and this is production lines are accountable for 60% of climate change. Things like lab-grown meat, or things like even Beyond Beef, they seem like the easy solution, but they have a massively expensive production line. And production lines are the problem, right? Because they are the things that cause carbon footprints, making the machinery, making the refrigeration, taking our natural elements and using it in this way. We are using several planets more resources for these production lines than we have, because we only have the one planet. So from an even though from a cruelty perspective it might be slightly better because it's only 1 calf instead of millions or whatever, from a purely carbon point of view, anything that requires a massive production line and removes humans from nature and the seasonality of our food supply chain is necessarily worse than just growing food and eating food. Cherwell Collective does have plans to go to Bicester. We already have gardens here in Bicester. We first, though, would like to support people who are already doing great work in Bicester. So that's the first step, is just trying to elevate our wonderful partners. You do have a surplus cafe already here at the Methodist Church on a Friday that is connected to the food bank. But the idea is that we can build on the great work that's being done using surplus and elevate existing excellent businesses. There are quite a few businesses that are culturally diverse foods that are actually vegetarian places already. So what we would do is instead sort of lift those up and say, if you're a vegetarian, all of these places are already vegetarian, right? So they don't have any meat because for whatever reasons they don't serve meat or eat meat as a community. And then we have plans to support them with sort of other infrastructure. Whether Climatarian Kitchen will expand here, I don't know. Like, we don't want to replace anyone. But we do cater, so if you have any events and you need any catering, we can bring it just like we brought it here and talk about our food any place. But I would say definitely try to support the existing amazing infrastructure in Bicester first, which we will try to do, and then any gaps that our amazing partners see, like if all of our partners say, yeah, we'd really love a Climatarian Kitchen here, then that's when we would do it. We're not as imperialist as that. I'm just kidding. Did you have anything you wanted to say about it? Any other questions in the audience or comments? Tom?
I just wanted to add that my analysis on, I mean, the carbon thing's really interesting, but also the impact on nature is like fascinating from my perspective, because our analysis showed that we have about a kind of 12,500 meters squared impact on nature from the choices which we make, and about 93% of that comes from food. And the thing is like if you make these choices, the really interesting thing is it can really halve your impact on nature. And what happens when you halve your impact on nature is that you create space for nature to be restored, and then that helps sequester carbon. And it's like, the circularity of all that stuff is just fantastic, so I just wanted to make that comment.
No, that's absolutely right. The single biggest decision you can all make is to eat less but better meat. And there's no two ways around that. Even if you just cut out one meat meal a week, if we all do that, that's better than one of us going completely vegan, right? So it's really, really important to eat less but better meat. And you can save 1 ton of your carbon footprint each year by cutting the amount of meat you eat in half. So you don't even have to cut it all out. You just eat half what you ordinarily eat, and that would cut out 1 ton of your carbon footprint, and the average person only has a 6-ton carbon footprint. So just to make that scale really obvious, 1/6 of your carbon footprint can be cut out by eating half of your meat. You don't even have to go full cruelty-free or anything. Massive, massive, massive impact, and it is the single most important decision anyone can make, is to eat less but better meat.
And for anyone who does want to go fully vegan, you can give it a try in Veganuary, which happens every year. You can sign up for that and commit to trying a month of not eating meat, and you get daily recipes and advice and lots of good things. So, yeah, that's every January, and they'll start promoting that in December.
I think that,
Where does fish come into all of this?
farmed fish requires us to grow food just like any other farmed produce, but fish is, generally speaking, one of the best proteins in terms of carbon footprint, because you can still get wild fish, and it can be grown quickly, and it has a fast maturation rate. So fish is better than, well, a lot of fish. There are exceptions. Lobster's terrible. Lobster's just as bad as beef, basically. But some types of fish are good, especially your smaller, sort of oily fish, quite good. The ones you need to eat anyways, your omegas. Large fish like tuna, we've known are bad, and we shouldn't eat them for some time. So I would say, generally speaking, fish, if you're gonna meet someone halfway, pescatarian is better than a carnivore. But you should it's really hard to find the information you need on grocery store labels to make informed decisions. So what you want to do is just try to kind of inform yourself around what sorts of fish, and importantly, control the portion size of your proteins, because most people eat way too much protein. Most people eat about 3 times as much protein as they actually need. So you could actually do a lot for your carbon footprint simply by portion controlling your protein source, which is typically meat for a lot of people, and then that will go a long way. So when we do outreach on eating half a meat diet, a lot of that is taken care of just by appropriate portion control. But generally speaking, yeah, fish better than chicken, pork better than lamb and beef by a mile. There are some cheeses that are worse than fish. Anybody want any more curry? There's some delicious vegan curry made with only surplus, which is like negative carbon footprint, in the back, so please eat it. And can we thank Linda and Maggie for coming? Do you want any closing statements?
Yeah, thank
She
you.
wants a clothing one.
I recommend the curry. It is delicious. Well done for those who provided it for us today. Thank you.
I don't.